Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Great Day Houston. We're starting with something that's kind of tough, grief. It's something most of us will experience at some point in our lives, but talking about it doesn't always come easy. This Sunday is National Grief Awareness Day. It's a chance to break the silence around loss and encourage open conversations about grief. Our first guest has made it his mission to normalize those conversations. David Ferrugio was just 12 years old when he lost his father in the World Trade Center on September 11, 2001. Years later, he turned his own experience with loss into Dead Talks, a podcast that opens up conversations about death, grief, and what it means to keep living. Now he's sharing the lessons he's learned in his new book, You're Not Dead Yet: How Grief and Loss Can Teach You to Live. It comes out September 8th, just days before the 25th anniversary of 9/11. David joins us to talk about finding your own way through grief without letting it define you. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Or shall I say good morning, David John Ferrugio. We were joking before the show that when you get all the names, that means your mom was mad at you, right?
Something like that.
You grew up in a very, very close-knit family, and you were particularly close to your father.
Yeah, I'm very blessed to have that. And even though it was only 12 years, it's tough to say it makes it harder or better because I had such a good relationship with him, but I'm blessed to even have had 12 years with him.
Yeah. Explain to us who he was.
My dad was someone who was really good at making people feel comfortable, which is something I've tried to do my best to, conjure up. It was the life of the room without trying to be. And, he was a silly man, always present in my life. And, yeah, he was just someone that I looked up to and still do in many ways.
So many of us take our parents for granted because, they've always been there. They're parents. They do those things that you expect them to do. You make a point that he came to your baseball games, even straight from work. I remember my parents, I would look up in the stands before a track meet and see my mom running down one side, my dad in his military uniform. And I didn't realize until years later how they had to get permission to leave work early to make it there.
Yeah, I mean, it's life.
Yeah.
It's things are routine and constant in your life. It's easy to not always, it can be taken for granted, but it just becomes normal and a regular occurrence. So it unfortunately sometimes takes something to be taken away to realize how much it meant. But that's just something I've tried to lean into and being present, trying to be aware of what's in front of me right now. And it's much easier said than done, but then again, everything is.
And it was a process. All right, you were 12 years old, seventh grade. Your dad worked in the World Trade Center, the 105th floor of the North Tower. Take us through that day. I know you've done this again and again and again, but if you can, take us through that day.
Yeah, so seventh grade, I was 12 years old, and I'll try to give you the quicker version, but I had a buddy of mine who was notoriously late for school, and he must have arrived after 9 o'clock after the first plane hit. Knew my dad worked there, kind of gave me a question like, well, your dad works at the World Trade Center, right? Because a plane just flew into it. And I was, what does that even mean? It's like the most absurd sentence I've heard in my life at the time. And so I essentially was left in school the entire day, a decision that I backed because pulling me back into the chaos would have been even more chaotic and traumatizing, in my opinion.
And of course, reminding people that at this time, if it happened today, it's in the palm of your hand and your phone right away. You didn't really see the images or any of that. You just heard about it at that time.
Yeah, that's an incredible point. We were in the dark because no one put the TV out. We didn't have that. We were living a normal life in many ways, more than today, I think. But I ended up going back home, walking home with my best friend around 3 o'clock, super close to home. And mind you, it was all done. So it was a replay, which is the weird part, looking back and forth. And when I eventually got home, before entering the door, I saw cars outside, which told me some crap went down, excuse my French. And then I made my way through the house, and then people were trying to keep me away from the TV. I forced myself to the TV, saw the footage for the first time. Again, a replay. And that's when everything kind of like split in two, because I remember seeing the footage, crying, and then everything just went black. And that's almost like it was a system reset, and my body kind of just shut down.
Yeah, and it's so hard for kids because oftentimes we'll see where you want to hurt and cry, but then you look at the people around you, your family around you, and you think I want to be strong for them. And sometimes people forget to talk it out with the kids.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know my butt from my elbow at 12 years old, so I don't know who knows what I was feeling. Who knows if I knew what I was feeling before or after that day, but it was something I battled with for a while. I always asked myself and even asked my family, like, did I show up? Like, I wasn't the man of the house yet because I was literally a boy, but it's like, did I show up? Was I strong? Because it was all a little bit of a blur, and I do remember a lot, but I hope I did. And at the same time, it's like, you can only expect so much out of a kid, but it's this question I've definitely sat on for a long time.
Yeah, and so many of the things that you learned are things that we can apply to our lives today. You say your mind had blocked out some things that were just too much to process at the time, and there were still some things you had to ask, did this happen? Was this going on? So it was unfolding, if you will, but you come to the conclusion that denial and memory blocks can protect us during trauma, so it's almost something innate in us.
Yeah, I mean, that's not, I'm not even taking credit for that. That's just something someone really smart, wise told me who's in the field, and it made sense. Because and my mom kind of said that naturally on an episode that we did. She said something like, maybe you didn't have to remember certain things. Even though I was frustrated with the non-remembering, but I think it can be a protection mechanism. But I learned over the long years of figuring this whole weird thing out, or not even figuring it out, just going through it. There's some things we don't have to remember, but there are also some things that you don't remember at first to work out later. So it's kind of up to us.
Yeah, and sometimes there's that strength in numbers thing that also becomes somewhat comforting. I remember my brother was killed by a drunk driver, and people would come to our door to come see us and say hello and how are we doing. But I just remember a few of them said that their loved one had been killed by a drunk driver as well. And somehow it puts you into a category of having more of a meaning to something, more of a, for us, it became a thing of we have to do something about this that kind of helped in the grieving process. For you, I mean, one of the most monumental things that happened in this country that galvanized the spirit of this country since World War II was that attack on 9/11.
Yeah, I mean, thank you for sharing your story. But it's just bizarre. Like, obviously I'm one of many, I'm not a representative of this experience at all, but one of many that have lost someone, let alone on that day. But it's just a bizarre paradox of it's so universal, yet we're still having an individual experience. So the support, like you mentioned, is beautiful. It can be overwhelming sometimes, but not like it's nothing to complain about. Like it's beautiful the way everyone rallied together, and I think support is just such an important aspect of getting through anything. And a lot of people don't have certain levels of support, so that's what I hope me and other people in this space are able to do, is offer people support that may not have it.
And you're doing that through this book, but you had that realization, you're right, that this was monumental support, even 25 years later, but you realize that on any given day someone is losing a loved one and they don't have that level of support.
Yeah, that's one of the big reasons of why I wanted to do it, because I felt guilt towards getting this attention, and not even massive attention like this, but it's just the fact that everyone knew my dad died. And I was like, what about everyone else that lost someone on a normal Tuesday? And it's not that everyone has to be seen, but that is part of it. It's a little bit of an acknowledgement and a little tip of the cap, and at least an understanding, and that's what I'm hoping to do in some capacity.
Yeah. Well, you're not hoping, you're doing it. When you do the Dead Talks, doing the Dead Talks podcast, I would imagine it could be somewhat therapeutic for yourself, but then you realize how therapeutic it became for so many other people. Did you have any idea of how many people would just need this podcast? You started in 2020 at a time where people were dealing with all kinds of stuff. And of course, with COVID, having losses there as well. Did you have any idea how many people would connect with this?
I feel like I had a gut feeling that it was needed. Like I believe that, but whether I can execute it and try to deliver it in a way that's digestible for people in the way that I saw it, I wouldn't know. I'd be lying if I did. If I was lying to myself, maybe. But I just believed in the conversation, and then the rest was up to me to try to put that out there. But I do think, especially since like 2020, I think people have been really in this question of mortality more than ever. Maybe not more than ever, but at least in my time being alive, I think people are asking these questions: who, what, why, what, mortality, I'm gonna die type stuff. And I feel like when I started this, it was at an interesting time. And over the last 6 years, more and more is coming out of people at least realizing the importance behind this conversation, as I did.
Yeah, and of course your book, You're Not Dead Yet, How Grief and Loss Can Teach You to Live. You have a grief recipe.
Well, yeah, I compare it to a grief recipe because I kept coming from an Italian-American household, so food is a form of love. And I just, the whole point about the grief recipe, or just recipe in life, is like we can get recipes and opinions and thoughts from the peanut gallery, and yes, some recipes are perfect, but when you're cooking, you could try, there's so many different ingredients. You can put a little more salt, a little more this, a little more that, and the whole point is the ingredients are really unique to you, and what mixture, what what pieces of ingredient work for you. So it's about getting out there, cooking, trying, messing up the recipe, throwing it away, not cooking some days. And I just kind of liken that to the messy, nonlinear aspect of grief, at least in my experience and what I've spoken to people about. That is, I'm not giving a prescription. I'm not even gonna give you a recipe. Maybe my recipe, but tweak it, dismantle it, mix it around, use it as it is. This is kind of the angle I'm going for.
And don't let loss define you. I have a dear friend who just never kind of came back after her husband passed away. And I just keep saying to her, everything good in him is still living in you. Let us see that.
That's beautiful. I mean, that's kind of representative of how I feel in many ways too. It's just, we're still here. I know that's certain times that's not going to resonate with certain people, but like we're still here. And there's still life to be had. And I think that's when an aspect of choice comes in and how we want to spend that time.
Yeah. And you also say it's okay to find moments of joy, laughter while mourning. I started my life in Asia, and it was always interesting to me because they would have paid mourners that would pretend to cry, but then they went to the party. And so it was all about celebrating that person's life. And you see that in so many cultures around the world, where it's a big celebration. In America, it had been more about the mourning of someone's life as opposed to the celebration of it. I think we're turning that corner. But that's where that levity comes in, that moments of joy and laughter and what that person meant to you, how that person left a mark in the world.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, I'm going to suggest it to my family. So if I go first, roast me at my funeral. I mean that by joking, like, no, there's not the other way. But at the same time, I just, the humor to me is, it's important. It's a relief valve. You don't have to be the funniest person in the room or write a joke. It's just at least accepting joy and accepting moments of levity that happen in an improvised manner, because it is a release valve. And then you can go back to whatever you're worrying about, but at least give yourself permission to laugh once in a while, because it really is a medicine, as they say. So come on.
Yeah, and I've seen at several funerals that I've been to, when people are allowed to share stories, everyone gets a fuller idea of who that person was. Even family members will say, I didn't know he did that. I didn't know she said that. And when I round out with this, it's crucial for men to talk about emotional pain. Oftentimes in any family, when a loved one passes away, someone feels like they have to carry the weight of it for everybody else. And oftentimes, if the man's not the one who passed away, it feels like that he's the one who has to do that. But just men in particular, it's okay to deal with the grief.
Yeah, I mean, hell, it's if anything, we're really focused on the man aspect. I think it makes you more of a man if you're willing to open up, because I understand this idea of like being strong. I get that, but I think being strong is also letting that out and showing that the pain inside, because everyone feels pain. I don't care if you're the strongest person in the room. There's a pain inside. We all go through these human emotions and aspects. So if we're going to put this portrayal of being strong on, then I think that is more letting other people know that you're feeling it, and then you can go back to autopilot of handling what you got to do. But there is this notion that men or certain people in the family that really lead the charge have to put on this face like, I'm strong, I'm good. But in my opinion, I think it is important to let that out, because at some point it's going to show up down the line in some other capacity.
All right, David, John Ferrugio, I will be thinking about you, as many of us will, on 9/11. Thank you so much for sharing with us this morning.
Thank you for sharing. I really appreciate the opportunity.
All right. David Ferrugio's book, You're Not Dead Yet, comes out on September 8th, but you can pre-order online wherever books are sold. And to learn more about his Dead Talks podcast, visit greatdayhouston.com and we will connect you.